Welcome to Satsang. We start as always with a question that comes from our family joining us online, and then we will open it up to any questions that any of you might have. There's a microphone right here, so if you have any questions, feel free to just come to the microphone and share your name and the question. But beginning first with one of these from our online audience. Who am I? Why am I here? Where is my real home? I want to go back. This is asked by Nipun Dengan. Here's the beautiful piece about spiritual truth in this human body. We carry our home with us. There's nowhere to go. We're here. The only thing to do is remove the idea that you are not here. It's actually that idea that is keeping you stuck. One of the phrases that I love I've got a very deep, what you would call regular meditation practice. And then I've got a very deep kind of meditation overlap psychology process, in which I'll take a particular question or idea or phrase and not actually meditate on it, as in when I'm actually sitting in meditation, it's not what's going on in my mind, because that's a time not for thinking. But it's the question that I will just allow to percolate through me as I move through the day, or that I'll even take some time out during the day to just sit and be with. And one of the questions that I work with like that is, what if? Just what if? Like, for these sorts of questions, it always just has to be a question and inquiry. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's just an inquiry. And one of my favorites is, what if? What if there weren't actually a problem? Meaning, there's pretty much always, during the course of any of our days, I would imagine, something to be stressed about, frustrated about, unhappy about, sort of focused on in a negative way. And whether it's a piece of news that you just saw online or someone sent a message, whether it's something in your own family, whether it's a relationship issue, whether it's that you can't zip up your skirt, whatever it might be. But there's pretty much always something that our mind is going negative about. And whenever mind does that, I love to just work with this question of, what if? What if there weren't actually a problem? Like, what if this whole idea that there is a problem were the problem? And it's a very interesting place to go, because it seems really objectively matter of fact that, yes, of course, there is a problem. This is a problem. That is a problem. And I'm not saying there aren't things to work on. There's a lot of work for us to do. On ourselves, our own psyches, in the world. what's happening in the world, lots of things to work on, lots of work to do. No one gets to sit this one out. But what if we looked at it not as a problem? What if we looked at ourselves not as a problem? What if all of those voices in our head that are constantly telling us that things are wrong in us, in the world, what if those voices were wrong? And it's just a question. It's just an inquiry. And I have found it to be a really powerful inquiry. Because the simple idea that there might not actually be a problem, so many of us get into this mental space of like, I've got to solve the problem. And whether the problem is like what I'm going to do with my life, or what I'm going to do with the relationship, or what I'm going to do about my anger, or how I'm going to bring, peace to the world. Whatever it is, we get into these mental states of like, I've got to figure it out. There is a problem, I have to solve it. And if you simply allow yourself the very possibility, I'm not going to tell you right, wrong, this or that, but just allow the possibility that there might not actually be a problem. It's an incredibly deep place to go. The moment your mind starts with that, instead of getting into the game of, okay, let's figure this out, what am I going to do with my life, or this relationship, or what am I going to do about that person, or this problem? If you just allowed yourself to say, what if just for the next 10 minutes, I allowed myself to exist in a space in which there wasn't a problem? Doesn't mean that I would, handpick all of the people who necessarily may have arisen in my life. Doesn't mean it's exactly the way I want it to be. I'm not talking about repression or denial or, kind of whitewashing over challenges. But I mean removing the idea that there is a core problem here. And for me, that's what this question is getting at. Where is my true home? I want to go back. Well, that implies that you are somewhere wrong. It implies that where you are is incorrect, that you're not home. What if you were? What if you were exactly where you're supposed to be? What if you were doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing? What if this moment, where you are, who you are, who you're with, what brought you here, what if all of that were simply exactly the way it was meant to be? Just allow that to seep in for a moment in just the possibility. What if I actually am home, but my mind is elsewhere? I'll frequently start satsang with a meditative practice by saying, just allow yourself to arrive. And it sounds a bit weird because here we are. And yet, so frequently, the body is somewhere, but the mind is not. So what if you say, well, I am home. The dilemma is that my awareness isn't here. Like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. But my mind is in yesterday and tomorrow, which isn't here. And so it doesn't feel like home, because my mind's not here. It's like coming back home from vacation. But all the mind does is just keep, looking at pictures and replaying all of it. You're home, but your mind's not back yet. So you're not able to fully be there Because the mind is still on vacation. Reminiscing about, all the things you did, where you went, what you ate, who you saw. So you're home, but it doesn't feel right. And I think that's the state that a lot of us live in our bodies and in our lives. We're here. We're home. There's nowhere else to go. But because our minds have convinced us there is a problem to be solved, we're not able to be home. We're in the past, we're in the future, we're in the problem. So the best way to come home is to recognize here you are, right here, right now. Exactly where you're supposed to be, exactly who you're supposed to be, walking through whatever part of your karmic journey you are meant to walk through. It is not a problem to be solved. It is a door to be walked through. And if you think about it like that, then suddenly all the problems disappear. We still have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of steps to take. But it isn't a problem. And we're not anywhere other than exactly where we're supposed to be. So next time that your mind tells you there is a problem, just see whether in inquiry you can allow yourself to drop into just the idea, the possibility, that the actual problem is the mind, not where you are. And that actually the thing to be fixed is how the mind thinks about where you are rather than where you are. And that if you can just bring the mind here, bring the awareness here, then all of you is here. Yeah, great question. Other questions? Yes, of course, come.
Good evening. Probably for the past few years, my wife and I, we had what people would say successful careers. And in the last probably 2 years, things are changing. And we feel like we just met a year ago, and we feel like we were being prepared for something. And when we met, it's like it's propelling us forward towards something we don't know what it is. So we decided to come to India. This is our first time here.
Wonderful.
And it's our first time here at the ashram. And I remember when we walked a few weeks ago through the gates, we felt familiar. And we felt, whoa, what is this place that we've never been to consciously? But we feel so at home. And we were so committed to this new part of our lives that we decided to get married here last week in India.
How wonderful.
And because of this new phase, I would like to ask if you can share with us, based on your experience and your wisdom, how do we deal with this new phase that we don't know what it is, without bringing our old selves and just maybe making a repetition of what has been in the past. Thank you.
Beautiful. And congratulations. Oh, wonderful. In the Indian tradition, life is divided into 4 main phases, or what's called ashrams of life. The first is the brahmacharya ashram. And it's the time of your life when you're a student. And your dharma in that stage is to study. Not just study in school, but also study life. Who are you? It's the seeker of the divine, of truth. So it's not just study math and science, but it's study the self. The young boys you see here in yellow who are studying in our Gurukul, that's a very traditional form of education in India. Young kids were sent off to live with the Guru, to learn not just reading, writing, arithmetic, but actually to study who they are. So that's the first phase. Second phase is what's called the Grihastha Ashram phase. That's your householder phase. You get married, you have a family, have kids, don't have kids, either way, but that's the phase you have. Have your jobs, you support your family, you contribute to society. Then is the Vanprasthashram phase. And that's around retirement age. And that's the age where you've done the career thing, you've done the kids thing, if that's part of your journey. If you did the kids thing, they're now old enough to take care of themselves. And it's really a time for you to start shifting away from a focus of earning to a focus of sharing and giving, and to start getting much more quiet and contemplative. Maybe you move from the middle of the hustle and bustle of the city more into a, woodsy, foresty place where you see trees and rivers and mountains, and that just kind of begins to bring you into that phase of second half of life. And then the final stage is the sannyasashram phase, which is what you could think of as the golden years, or as Pujya Swamiji says, the landing phase, like an airplane, takeoff, fly, landing. It's the landing phase of life. And it's the time in which you really focus on getting to know that part of you, meaning the soul, that is going to continue when you drop the body. It's a time of life where you really start focusing on, okay, at some point, I'm going to be dropping this body. Am I spiritually ready? Am I where I need to be spiritually to walk into my next birth? It's also the time that we really, again, refocus on giving back to the community. Whatever we have, we share. We talk about it as the learn, earn, and return phase. And the return being both you return things back to the community, back to the world, but also return as in we return back to the elements. So it means both. Going back to this Grihastha Ashram phase, this beautiful married life, I think the most important thing to remember is it's a path to God. It's a yoga. And it's really important not to compartmentalize your life, because then you're going to end up frustrated. If you create different lines and different compartments and you say, okay, this is my spiritual life over here, and this is my relationship over here, and this is my job over here, and this is my social life over here, you're bound to be frustrated. And it doesn't mean that you don't do different things. Sure, here you are playing tennis, here you are in a suit and tie at the office, here you are sitting and meditating, here you are having dinner. But the mental state, the experience of self should stay the same. Allow your relationship to be part of your spiritual practice, not something separate. Allow yourself to walk together, quite literally, closer and closer and closer to the divine, and to use the relationship to get closer to the divine. I was sitting with a beautiful group the other night, and a husband and wife who had been married for almost 40 years. We were talking about relationship. And they said, we made a commitment a long time ago that each of our priorities was going to be the relationship. But he explained it very subtly, and I thought this is a really beautiful tip, so let me pass this on to you as well. He didn't say, not our priority is the other person. So it's not, oh honey, whatever you want. It's not that. It's more subtle than that. The priority is the relationship, not necessarily what do you want in this moment. Because a lot of times when we are not living in our highest truth, we may think we want something that isn't actually what's best for the relationship. They said we both made a commitment that we were going to make the relationship our priority. Not what I want, not what you want, but what is best for the relationship. That we are going to meet in this place of relationship. So it's not me giving in to you or you giving in to me or me subsuming what I want for your needs. It's a mutual agreement that this relationship means something very important to us. And we are both going to make that a priority. So I thought that was really beautiful. To me, what's most important is that whatever you do, you use it as a way to get to God. And so whether it's a path of renunciation and monastic celibacy, or whether it's a path of relationship, either way, if you are having grudges and frustrations and annoyances and resentments and regrets, you're not getting closer to God. Either way. The relationship will trigger you. It will inevitably bring up that within you which needs to be healed. That is not a problem. That's what it's supposed to do. Don't try to mold the other person according to what you think you need. Recognize that the universe has sent you the other person so that you realize that what you thought you needed isn't actually what you need. That's our deep work. If you're gonna walk the path of relationship, you're gonna use it really as a yoga. And so if this person is someone I have committed to, okay, well there's a purpose to this. Not for me to see my spouse as Play-Doh that I'm supposed to just, mold into my perfect spouse. But I'm supposed to recognize that there is an inherent perfection in that being. And that what it means is these are the lessons I'm meant to learn. So really see the relationship as a spiritual practice. And when problems arise, choose your highest goal. My dad is a divorce attorney and is now 78, he's now 78, and still working. So he's spent now, more than 50 years getting people divorced. And so he knows a lot about the subject. And his best piece of advice to couples getting married is you've got two choices in your marriage. You can either be, or two options. One choice, two options. You can either be right or you can be married. He says you can't be both. And you have to choose, is it more important to you to be right, or is it more important to you to be married? And by the way, this is true in any relationship. Whether it's a marriage, whether it's a best friendship. Doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. But the question arises, is it more important to be right, or is it more important to be in love? Is it more important to be in peace? I've never known anyone who regretted choosing love and choosing peace over being right. But I know a lot of people, and there's a lot more people who I don't even know, who regret making being right a priority over being in love and being in peace. Yeah. Beautiful. Wonderful. Congratulations. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Deepak. First of all, thank you for this beautiful time. And I wanted to ask a couple of questions. However, the first would be, how should I be good consistently in the rat race which I'm living in for my family and relationship? How do I put myself as a good person consistently and into practice? Because as and when the time comes and the situation occurs, I do change myself. So that is a challenge for me. But that is one question.
So let's start there. We call it a rat race, but that doesn't mean that you should become a rat. The ultimate goal is to not be a rat. Doesn't mean you have to get out of the race, but just stop being a rat. We use that term, I think, in a way to almost kind of let ourselves off the hook. It's a rat race. Therefore, obviously, I must be a rat. I mean, hey, it's a rat race, right? So what do you expect of me? I don't like the term, because the term implies somehow that we are all complicit in co-creating a system of living that is not sustainable, that is not rooted and anchored in equality and justice. So if it were up to me, I would avoid the phrase. But there's certainly no rule at all that you cannot make a living, that you cannot make a good living, that you cannot very nicely support your family without being a rat. That's a myth. And if you find that in your line of work you have to be a rat in order to bring home a paycheck, find a different line of work. Really. Because what it's doing to your mind and heart is much worse than how you would be with a lower income. That being said, I think in most lines of work, there is a way to do it with integrity, to do it without feeling like you've sold your soul to the devil. That's the direction that business needs to go. It's the direction that our workplace needs to go. The days of sort of excusing oppression and suppression and cheating and complicity and all of that in the name of, a free market society or capitalism, or those days should be over. Yeah, make a living, make a good living, do business. But you shouldn't have to sacrifice who you are. And if what you're doing requires that of you, stop doing it. Have faith, there will be another job. And again, it may not be as much money. I'm not saying that, you're immediately going to become a super rich person just by being honest and living in integrity. But you're going to be able to sleep at night. You're going to be able to look yourself in the mirror. You're going to feel in alignment. And that's so much more important than having a bit of extra money. So begin by trying. It's easiest, obviously, to stay in your current job. What happens if you stop being a rat? Just make a commitment. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to, engage in something that is harmful. I'm not going to, work to sell tobacco products or to, sell alcohol products or to, sell things that require children and women to be in sweatshops or bonded labor. Like, I'm just not going to do that. But those are not really high bars. It's kind of a bare minimum. There's a lot of jobs you can get out there that you could get through a good work week without lying or stealing or cheating or doing something that put women and kids into bonded labor or sweatshops or harmed our environment. So stop excusing that. If we as the producers and consumers don't stop producing and consuming, then the law of supply and demand is just going to keep going. There's going to be a supply, there'll be a demand, then there'll be a supply. It's this never-ending cycle. But we have to stand up and stop the cycle of violence to humans, to animals, to the planet, to our own integrity. The word economy begins with the word eco. Right? So be part of the economy, but just make sure that it begins with eco. Yeah. Yes.
Sadhviji. I am Dilip Shukla. Yesterday we discussed on So Hum, where So breathe in and hum as a humming in the meditation. Now when we meditate on So Hum, either we take the vibrations of humming through the whole body and concentrate, or I generally do take the So Hum to every chakra from down to up and take that cycle. But is this taking to chakras and doing those activities, increases the chatter of mind than rather just taking Soham to the whole body vibration? Yeah, which is a better way?
I was just going to say, God, that sounds really busy. So, meditation at its core is an undoing, not a doing. It's a removal of that which is not self, so that we can experience the true self. All of the techniques that we use, be aware of the breath, chant a mantra, move through the chakras, watch a candle flame, whatever it is. They're all techniques to quiet the mind so that the true experience of who we are can emerge. Now, some of the techniques have inherent benefits of their own anyway, like chanting a mantra, for example. Bare minimum, silences the mind, and there's a side benefit that you get from actually chanting the mantra. Working with the chakras can be a very powerful and very beneficial exercise. For me, personally, if I had to bring that into my actual meditative practice, it would get more busy than is conducive for me to drop into a stillness and spaciousness. But I think doing separate practices of working with the chakras is very powerful and very beautiful. And if you find, for example, that simply working with the breath or with a simple mantra like Soham, if you find that your mind still wanders a lot, bringing in an additional piece like working through the chakras could actually be really beneficial in helping to still the mind and give the benefit of working with the energy centers. Personally, the only ones that I work with in meditation itself is a breath-based meditative practice of, I've taught it in here frequently, of carrying the breath from the Swadhisthana chakra up to the third eye, to the Agya chakra. But it's much more an allowing and an awareness than an actual doing. So I would say, check in with yourself. You'll know. Does this feel like an activity? Do I feel like I'm doing something? Or do I feel just like something is happening? Meditation should be a happening rather than a doing. The ultimate goal is enough stillness and silence of the normal buzz of the mind, of the not self, that the true experience of who you are can emerge. And whatever you need to do to work with the mind to get it quiet and still enough, start with one thing. Start with just the awareness of the breath. Mind is still chattery. Okay, give it the Soham mantra. Work with that for a while. If the mind is still chattery, you can give it another thing. You could do it with the eyes open, watch a candle flame. Look at an image of the divine. Or, as you're working with the breath, you could absolutely work with the breath and the mantra moving through the chakras. Absolutely. Absolutely you could. But just keep checking in with yourself that it doesn't feel like an activity rather than an undoing. Good. Beautiful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. A beautiful day to our family joining us online. And I look so forward to being together tomorrow. And so much love to you all.